So, a slightly different topic than what I normally speak about today. I want to cover why you're not progressing in a bulk. So when you're trying to put on weight. One of the key issues people have is that they try and bulk up on the same foods they were eating while they were dieting. This is a problem because these tend to be quite high volume foods. So you're going to have to eat a lot of chicken, rice and broccoli to put on size. The second common mistake is putting protein too high. So the misconception is that you need to eat a lot of protein in order to stimulate muscle protein synthesis more. However, this response is saturated quite quickly. So once we've reached a level at which that response is saturated, it doesn't really matter where the extra calories come from. And there might be some negatives to having those extra calories coming from protein because of the satiating effects of protein. Also because protein is extremely expensive in comparison to carbs and fat. Your third reason is that you've increased calories too slowly or not enough. There's sort of two debates when you're talking about bulking. You can either go one way and you sort of set a weight that you want to reach, whether that's for a man maybe 100 kilograms, and you get there as fast as possible and then you just maintain there. Or you can creep up slowly. The argument for that would be that you're staying slightly leaner, but you still want to get to about that point, and then that's maybe the end of your bulk. There are benefits, pros and cons to each, and I'm not sure which one would be better. That's kind of personal preference on that. So one of the most interesting points to me about why bulking progress is hard, or maybe why your bulking progress is stalled, is that we often speak about adaptations to dieting. So the changes which occur to sort of stop you losing weight, why dieting is so hard. So one of those, and I speak about it quite a lot, is NEAT, so non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And the idea is that, or the observation is that as you diet, your body tries to maintain your weight. And one way it does that is by subconsciously reducing your activity levels. However, we don't sort of reverse this and think about what happens as we try and increase weight. And the opposite happens. So as you increase your food intake, your activity levels increase as well. And this can be somewhat subconscious, so you might not know that you're expending more energy, and you maybe haven't accounted for that extra energy in your calculations of weight gain. So that's another reason that you might not be progressing in terms of increasing your weight as quickly as what you had expected, given the calculations you'd made. And finally, and probably the most important, especially for girls, is that if you're anything like me, you decide to bulk for about 5 days and then decide that you don't like being bigger, so you just maintain where you are or decide to diet again. I guess like switching and changing your goals really quickly is going to make it hard to actually attain any measurable progress either way. But that's more a psychological side. So the physiology side would be that, I guess the main take-home tips from this would be you're probably not going to be able to bulk on the same foods you eat to diet. So that means like really, I guess, clean, quote unquote, clean foods that are quite high in volume. You'll probably You're probably going to want to get some of your increased calories from fats and carbohydrates as opposed to just protein. And we spoke about why that is. Protein's extremely satiating and quite expensive, and there's no additional benefit to eating more of it, and there might be some negatives. And that's about it. This is a quick video in response to a brilliant observation that Ollie made in response to a podcast Lawrence and myself did for Shredded by Science Radio. The podcast was about how much protein you need when you're bulking. So there's a misconception that you need to increase your protein a lot when you're bulking, and we pointed out that there may be some detrimental sides to that, satiety and also cost. However, Ollie made a really good point that when you start increasing your total calories, the protein that you get from sources that aren't necessarily deemed protein sources. So the example he made was that I think it was a bagel has 8 grams of protein. That all adds into your total protein for the day. So if we've said, oh, you only need 2 grams per kilogram body mass, going above that, we haven't actually quoted these, but say we said that going above that doesn't really add anything because you've already saturated that muscle protein synthesis response. That might not be true if you're getting your protein source from sources that aren't quality protein sources, so they don't maybe have the full amino acid spectrum, things like what you deem a carbohydrate source like bread, pasta, rice. These all add up, especially if you're eating more in a bulk. So Ollie was saying, you know, it is important to look at the amino acid profile of your protein sources and maybe where you're getting them from as well, and that probably by doing that and eating more, your total protein will have increased over the day. So my advice to that is that it's a brilliant point and one that I hadn't really thought about, but it would also be that not only should you be looking at your total protein intake for the day, but maybe splitting that down into, okay, I'm having a good source of protein with each meal. So I'm having a chicken breast with this meal, I'm having some fish with this meal, and I'm having a whey protein shake before training. Whatever it is, they should be, you know, of it. The other thing we've spoken about is the size of the protein portion. So you want to hit about 25 grams of a good quality source of protein to maximally stimulate that muscle protein synthesis response. So just a good point that your overall protein macronutrients can add up over the day, even though you might not be getting in these boluses that maximally stimulate muscle protein synthesis. So it's important to think of not just your source of protein, but your timing, your quantity at each meal, and yeah, the quality of your protein, not just your overall, if it fits your macros, which is another sort of caveat to if it fits your macros, which is interesting. So thanks, Ollie.